As an entrepreneur, marketing is always key to a successful business, especially visual communications. We're going to talk about that and much more on this episode of The Crude Truth.
In 1901, at Spindletop Hill near Beaumont, the future of Texas changed dramatically as, like a fountain of fortune, thousands of barrels of oil burst from the earth towards the sky. Soon, Detroit would be cranking out Model Ts by the millions, and America was on the move, thanks to the black gold being produced in Texas. Now, more than a century later, the vehicles are different, but nothing else has truly changed. Sure, there may be many other alternative energy sources like wind and solar and electric. But let's be honest, America depends on oil and entrepreneurs, and if the USA is truly going to be independent, it has to know the crude truth.
This episode of The Crude Truth is brought to you by Oil and Gas Workers Association, Sandstone Group, Air Compressor Solutions, Basin Fluids, and the Fuel Pros.
Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Thank you as always whenever you are listening to this or watching this episode of The Crude Truth. First of all, I want to say welcome. If you're watching today, we are actually in our Dallas studio again today in our talk show studio. So very excited to be here today. So definitely take a look. And as always, shout out to my sponsor, Real News Communications, for their wonderful support and production that they help out with along with Sandstone Group. In my teaser there today, we talked about marketing and also more importantly, visual communications within the marketing realm of the world of entrepreneurship. And there's no doubt about it that great marketing helps build a company. Today, in order to talk about that, I brought in the CEO of Speed Pro Frisco and Plano here in, well, obviously the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Tom Izzo. Tom, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Good. Hey, well, thank you so much for coming on and making the drive from the Plano, Frisco area down here to the Galleria today. So
Yeah, my
thanks so
pleasure.
much.
Yeah.
And well, first of all, thank you for coming on, like I just said, and also want to thank Ola Hawatme for introducing us. She called me up a couple of weeks ago and said, "Hey, I've got a great guy that I do work with. His name's Tom Izzo. You have to have him on. He's a patriot. He's an entrepreneur, and he's a really nice guy." I said, "Well, come on, Ola, let's get him on the show." So thank you to Ola for having Tom on, and Tom, more importantly, thank you for coming on. How are you?
Good. Thank you.
Good. Hey, in my teaser there, I talked about visual communications, which is part of marketing, and that you are the owner of a franchise called Speed Pro Frisco and Plano. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. For our listeners out there, that do have their own entrepreneur, are entrepreneurs or have the entrepreneur show spirit. What is it about, visual communications real quick that, if you could just sum it up in one word?
Noticeability.
Noticeability. Okay. Well, I want to pause on that for a minute, and let's talk about you for a minute here before we go into noticeability and build it up. Tom, who are you? What's going on?
So, long story,
Yeah.
made short. So, originally born in New York, moved to Florida in the early 80s.
Yeah.
Stayed in Florida up until August of 2019. I was with a large pharmaceutical manufacturer.
Okay.
Got headhunted by a nutraceutical company. They called me up, said, "Hey, we have this opportunity out here in Texas." Brought me over to Texas, East Texas actually, so way up on the other side from here.
Whoa, that's a change.
Yeah.
What part of Florida were you in?
Tampa.
Oh, wow. So you go from Tampa to East Texas.
To East Texas.
What part of East Texas?
Lindale.
Well, shout out to everybody out there in Lindale, Texas.
Really,
Yes.
Yeah, really far there. So spent about 3 years out there, and then the company decided that my time was up.
Okay.
Last year in March, sent me on my way, and I had already started looking at getting into a business on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I planned to exit. They kind of just pulled the cord a little bit sooner than I was ready for it to be cut. So
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. And, I want to talk about the Speed Pro there in Plano and Frisco, and to talk about your company a little bit there. What is it that you guys are doing over there?
So we do all type of large format printing. So
Okay.
we do retractable banner stands, backdrops, car wraps, window wraps, all types of standees. We do cutouts. We have a router and CNC machine. We've got flatbed printers, roll-to-roll printers, plotters, so we can do decals, cut out shapes, do all sorts of things. Acrylic wood, aluminum, dye bond materials, all that.
Wow. Okay. And so that means like even, I mean, y'all can do little pamphlets, y'all can do flyers, y'all can do campaign posters, y'all can do all types of stuff then.
We can do, we can do flyers. The pamphlets and business cards are more small format, so we deal with like a partner in that realm there.
Okay.
But yeah, we do menu cards and different things like that. So we've got the ability to do all of that.
Okay.
All in-house there. And we work with other partners in the industry, other trade partners when it comes to like certain hardwares that we need that are just manufactured in certain parts of the US. So for instance, like hop-ups or anything like that,
Yeah.
the hardware, we can order the hardware that we need and supply that to our clients.
So like for anybody, like obviously, you know, as you know, I'm in the oil and gas industry, and for anybody that is in the oil and gas industry or in any other trade, which hopefully, you know, I do know a lot of people listen, you probably also then can help get people fitted out for trade shows. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So, you know, where can people find you, for Speed Pro Frisco and Plano?
So we are located in Plano off of Commerce Drive.
Okay.
So 1200 Commerce Drive, Suite 107. And our website is speedprofrisco.com.
Okay. All right. And what's some of the craziest stuff that you've made so far? If you can divulge without, you know, people knowing.
We do. So we get different requests all the time.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we don't really know what we're going to get until like I'll just get a phone call and say, hey, can you do this for me? It's like, sure. We'll get the file. We've done some of the bigger projects we've done. We did a lot of Valor signs for a company out in Dallas. So what they were doing is they were recognizing their veterans, and they wanted a way to do that. So we made an acrylic piece for them that had the medallions of the different areas of the military.
Yeah,
so
okay,
different, you know, the Army, Navy. So we did that and left places for them to put their names on. As far as like anything really, really crazy goes, I haven't really had anything that I would say is really too crazy or out of the ordinary. But we do get requests for really large, you know, backdrops and stuff like that. So I'd say the biggest backdrop we did was 10 by 20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so 10 feet tall, 20 feet wide. That was a pretty large one there. And that took up pretty much a whole stage.
I was about to say that reminds me of like what you get after the NBA games or those soccer games where you got all the different logos on there and people are talking in front of it and all that kind of stuff.
So we've done that. We've wrapped pillars. That was an unusual request at one of the hotels here locally. So the company coming in didn't like the big pillars that they had, so we had to come up with a way to hide the pillars, which we did using some foam core that we printed on, and we kind of connected them all together and wrapped it around the pillars to kind of hide that.
Nice. Okay, you said you did vehicle wraps. What kind of cars have y'all done over there?
So we do a lot of fleet vehicles. So we've done dualies, we've done the Subarus, we've done some Subarus. We've done transit vans, a lot of transit vans, so tons of transit vans, lots of pickup trucks, that sort of thing there.
Man, you talk about Subarus. A buddy of mine in high school and into college had a Subaru back in the early 2000s. It was all about having a big lifted truck, and that little Subaru hung, man. Those little vehicles are no joke. Huh?
No, they're not easy to wrap though. I'll tell you, they're not fun to wrap, but they're good vehicles. You
talk about. I want to get back to your word noticeability. And what is one thing that you've noticed that your clients are coming back to you going, this was a great product for us to use?
Yeah, so what we've been doing a lot recently is, and this is becoming a bigger trend, and I notice a lot more of our clients are gravitating towards this. So a lot of the venues now are renting furniture. So they'll rent furniture, they'll rent tables, chairs, bars, and they're having us wrap all those. So they want to put their branding on that. So they want their name on that. And we've done a handful of events, I'd say the last month or so, where they're renting furniture from these different rental companies. And, even like the round tables, like the cocktail tables, we'll cut out round decals, we'll put those on there. So every every table or every bar that they go to or table where they have to go and register, would have the wrap on the front and the sides
Okay.
rather than using a tablecloth.
Okay.
So that's kind of the route they're going now. We're starting to see a lot of that. That's picking up a lot of traction, I'd say, the last few months.
Wow. And how is it that with that one picking up traction, what do you see as something that's tried and true in the visual communications world that has always also been something that really works when it comes to printing, decals, wraps, and so forth?
So a lot of retractable banner stands, that's a real popular item too,
Okay.
because they're compact, they're small.
Mhm.
So we even make them for tabletops that stand about 2 feet tall. So
Oh, cool.
very small, as high as 82 inches tall. We can make them. So those are real popular too, because they can have 4 or 5 of them in a small footprint. They're carried in a carry case. They just take it, they roll it up, stand it up, and then when they're done with it, they take it down, take it to their next venue.
Nice.
And those will last. They've got, they're pretty durable.
Okay.
So they go from place to place to place. I'd say, going back to your point, one of the craziest things we had to do, we supplied the banners and all the signage for the Magic Mike show that was in Frisco.
Okay.
So that was an interesting that was an interesting event there. We had to supply all the banners to cover their shipping containers. We made the acrylic bar signs and all the other stuff. So that was kind of different there with the Magic Mike show.
I can't imagine that. With this venture that you're doing right now, another thing that really caught my eye and really wanted to invite you to be on was being an entrepreneur. And this is a franchise that you're doing. And as you said here at the beginning, it was like, hey, I was already looking at something else to do. And now you employ individuals. You have your own job, working for yourself. What was it that drew you to this franchise as a whole?
So as a whole, it fit really what I was looking for. So after 25 plus years in the contract manufacturing business, especially pharmaceutical, then moving into nutraceutical, I was worn out.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do anything that required after hours work. I didn't want to work weekends. I wanted to have normal, stable business hours. And we are primarily a B2B, not so much a business to consumer.
Right.
So that gave me the flexibility I was looking for. So, if we do have events or anything like that planned on a weekend, we have installers that are scheduled to go out there. But all of our printing is typically done Monday through Friday.
Right.
And normally we get everything done in a typical business day. And that's really what I was looking for. And that's what really drew me to the Speed Pro franchise. The other thing, because my situation was a little bit unique where I wasn't planning to exit my last company as quick as I did.
Yeah.
It was already established. It had already been around for about 3 or 4 years. It already had, it was already generating revenue, had recurring revenue. So that was attractive to me because I didn't have to come in and wait that 2 or 3 year break-in period to where you start breaking even at that point. There was already a good clientele base. It was strong. And the owner just had some health issues and he had to sell. So the timing worked out in my favor on that one there. But it's definitely, and I needed to run my own show after so long of I think we all at some point we sit back and we say, gosh, I just would have made that decision so much differently, or why are they doing that? Well, the only way to fix that is to either you tolerate it, like I did for so long, or you just decide, I'm not going to do this anymore. Yeah. And that kick that they gave me out the door, I think was kind of what would force that decision on me a little bit sooner and made me hurry to decide, like, is this really what I want to do? And there's a lot of programs and plans out there to kind of help. Money is always a big thing when it comes to your franchise. Absolutely. And that's one of the other things they always ask you. Like I worked with a franchise consultant locally here. And, of course, the first thing is, how much money do you have to invest? Yeah. That's, are you going to get a loan? Are you going to self-fund it? How are you going to do that? And there's programs out there that allow you to take your 401k and roll it into a corporation, and it's tax-free. Yeah. And they don't penalize you for it either. So it's a direct rollover. So that company handled everything for me. And that's pretty much how I bought the Speed Pro, was I cashed out part of my 401k.
Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah. I know in the oil and gas industry, sometimes we do what's called 1031 exchanges where, for like-kind properties, where somebody may be selling a real estate piece of property and we can roll it over into a drilling or minerals venture. But that's pretty cool that you can do that also with a 401k. I bet there's a lot of people out there that could really have some questions about that. That's pretty cool.
There's a lot. There's really big differences. Most companies are LLCs.
Okay.
So LLCs run very much a lot differently than a corporation does.
Right.
Like, so for instance, because we're not an LLC, I have to be an employee.
Okay.
So I'm actually an employee of my own company, because that's the way the C Corp, we set it up as a C Corp, which is the way you do it if you're rolling your 401k. So I have to be an employee of that company. So there's different things, like with an LLC, you can do owner draws. If you want to take a salary or something like that, you do an owner draw, and it's looked at a little bit differently. The tax rate's a little bit less, but because I'm an employee, because I have to be an employee, then I get taxed the same way as everybody else does when I pull a paycheck out of it.
Okay, and you find that as a benefit?
I think I would prefer the LLC version, because
Okay.
you save money on the taxes.
Right.
And then the other thing is, because I rolled over the funds, like if I ever were to want to sell it or anything like that, I can't keep the proceeds. The proceeds have to go back into the retirement plan
Okay.
until I'm the age where I can withdraw it without penalty. So that's not the worst thing.
No.
But if you have other plans where, say, you want to sell it and go into another business, and you can roll that into another business, you just can't keep it for personal use.
Okay. Well, shoot. I mean, that's you, but you're literally with a 401k doing, even though I understand it has to go back into it, but that whole set it and forget it, like don't think about it, like you'll have it whenever you retire. That's
Right.
literally what you're doing. And if you roll it over into another venture, then you're still doing pretty good, I would think.
Yeah, and it's going to grow at a faster rate, than it would have been if I left, especially now, right? With the way everything's collapsing on us. So, putting into something that I can control, to me, I felt a lot better doing that. So, it's only going to do as good as I want it to do, right?
Yeah.
How much effort I put into it is going to be the effort I get out. So, what I really liked about it was, okay, I can sell if I get this going the way I want, and in 2 years from now, it's Speed Pro's where I want it to be. Let's just say I decide to sell it, and I sell it for 2-3 times more than I bought it for. My 401k would not have grown as much.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
in that amount of time. So that's one of the benefits of it. And then I can just take that and roll it into a different venture.
Well, okay, you talk about that your 401k wouldn't grow as fast, let's say if you sold in 2 or 3 years. What a time last year to go and break out on your own when inflation was even higher than what it is today. What can you say out there for anybody that, let's say, wanted to start a franchise? What is some advice that you would give somebody?
I would say, really understand the different areas you could get into.
Okay.
So one thing I liked about Speed Pro was it was recession proof to a point, because even though a lot of places were shutting down, signs still had to be made for all the COVID vaccination locations. There was still signage that had to be made. QR codes are being made for paperless menus, all those different things.
Right.
So luckily I didn't have to deal with that, because I came in after COVID. But talking to the owner that held that location previously, he was able to sustain his business up until Governor Abbott released the restrictions and everybody could go back, which wasn't a very long period of time.
No.
But he was able to sustain that few months just printing all of these signs and these little A-frame signs that everybody was putting out all over the place saying, hey, get your vaccination here, scan this code, scan that code. They made hundreds or thousands of those types of signs. So that's kind of what kept them going. So I would say, make sure it's a recession-proof business. There's a lot of businesses out there that are recession-proof. A lot of it are, another one that's really good is water restoration and cleanup. That was another one that I looked at.
Yeah.
So that's another one that's recession-proof. I personally would not go into food or anything like that, because, the trying to get people employed to stay for periods of time is very difficult as it is. So going into food or anything like that, you're dealing with a lot of younger kids too, and a lot of them really aren't wanting to do that kind of work anymore.
Right.
So you're really kind of limited. And everywhere I go, I still see places where, hey, we're short staffed, sorry for the wait. So that was enough for me to say, okay, I don't want to go into anything food related. And I want to stay away from that. And plus your margins on the food aren't very good. I looked at different franchises, and I was surprised at the amount of revenue you had to generate just to break 150,000 net.
Oh.
And in some of the places I was looking at, you had to break over $2 million top line revenue to hit $150,000 net.
Yeah.
So that means your margins are really low in the food business. But if you're in another business where it's not food related, You typically understand your margins, understand who your clientele are going to be, and then really just make sure that you're ready for whatever's going to come your way. Because I still get surprised, and everybody asks me, what was it like? Well, it's like drinking from two fire hoses.
Wow,
right?
I believe
So it's
it.
like,
Yeah.
because you've got everything hitting you all at one time, because the business is operating, it's going, people are calling, the phone's ringing, there's orders already going on that were in process, more stuff's coming in, I'm trying to figure out the business, trying to figure out the market pricing and all these different things. So it was a lot. I'd say the first 6 months or so was really tough.
Wow, I'd say that's a good problem to have, though. You got orders coming in, and what you said, you've already got the cash flow established. You got a clientele base already. What a way to come into starting your own business in a way. I mean, it's a great idea, and definitely something worth looking into.
Yeah, I would say if anybody's out there and they're looking for a way to break into the business, and they're like, I don't think I could sustain 2 or 3 years before I break even or start pulling a pretty consistent check,
Yes.
then I would say look for a resale.
Yeah.
But just make sure you understand the difference between, when you're looking at your P&L of that business, just make sure, you understand, are they an LLC or are they not? Because that affects how they look at their numbers overall.
Right.
And that was something that I learned looking at the P&Ls. Luckily, I had an accountant that was very helpful. And they're like, hey, you understand they're an LLC, so their salary gets put back into the business and it shows it as bottom line, whereas a C Corp doesn't. So just understand little nuances like that can be very helpful. So aligning yourself with the right people, you're going to need a lawyer to review your contracts. If you're buying a pre-existing business, it's an asset purchase agreement, not an outright purchase.
Yeah.
Because you never buy the location, you buy the assets.
Right.
At least that's how it was with me for Speed Pro. It was already, the territories were already established, the Frisco, Plano area. I had to purchase the assets, and that was everything contained within the building, and take over the lease for the building and that sort of thing. So
that's almost like just identical to oil and gas. Like, I'm going to take over a lease if it's a lease that's already producing with oil wells on it. I'm taking over the lease. Then I'm buying the pump jacks, I'm buying the tanks, and then hopefully my client base is really more oil wells, that I'm going to drill. But same thing. I mean, so really there's a lot of similarities here, and it sounds like franchises are really something to look at, and they can be as hands-on or not as hands-on, kind of like you hear sometimes on the radio, and because I always hear that, I'm like, nah, that can't be true, because I'm used to being hands-on, and because you hear, you don't got to touch a thing, do you want, that whole thing, do you want cash flow with, and I'm like,
yeah, right.
Tom, it's okay. So once again, where can people find you guys at?
So 1200 Commerce Drive, Suite 107, Plano. And website is www.speedprofrisco.com.
Okay. And, again, I want to say it one more time, noticeability. And I know for a lot of sales individuals out there and the marketing managers that are out there, I mean, you can't go wrong with having the right marketing pamphlets, those stands that go up, even signs like mine right here that say the Crude Truth. You got to have the right stuff, and that you guys are the guys to definitely to get to, because y'all can ship stuff all across Texas and across the United States.
We do, yes.
Yes, and you're not afraid to go to work and roll up your sleeves. I can tell you that.
No, not at all. So.
Well, Tom, I cannot thank you again for coming, but if you don't mind, one more time, will you just give your website so that people can go and find you guys one more time?
Sure, www.speedprofrisco.com.
Well, Tom, thank you, and thank you to all my listeners out there. And the one thing today, the crude truth is this: when it comes to marketing, noticeability. You got to have it. It's very important. Thank you, and we'll see you next time on another episode of The Crude Truth.
This episode of The Crude Truth is brought to you by Oil and Gas Workers Association, Sandstone Group, Air Compressor Solutions, Basin Fluids, and the Fuel Pros.
The easiest way to start your own podcast and TV show? Real News Communications Network.
Stand out from your competition. Produce streams of high-quality social media content. Become a thought leader in your industry. With RNCN, you get to be the host. We handle everything else. Tour one of our 3 locations in Dallas, Fort Worth, and the Colony. Call 972-402-6333 or visit launchashow.com to find out more.